Bonsoir, good evening. Welcome to the Public Forum. Bienvenue au Forum Public. I want to let you know that this evening is your evening, your opportunity to receive the information and ask questions. It's not a council meeting. Rest assured, us council will just be taking a seat and listening to your comments. Merci.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the OPP Costing Public Forum. My name is Stéphane Poulain. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Community Services for the Municipality of West Nipissing, and I will be your moderator this evening. Bonsoir et bienvenue à tous à la consultation communautaire concernant la proposition pour la police provinciale de l'Ontario. The purpose of this forum is to allow the residents of West Nipissing an opportunity to ask questions and provide comments regarding policing options in West Nipissing. This community consultation is being televised live on Eastlink and on YouTube. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Yarosh, our municipal IT manager, and the student and staff at l'école secondaire Franco-Cité for their tremendous help with the setup and broadcasting of this event. It's greatly appreciated. So tonight's forum will unfold as follows. Elisa Craddock, to my right, the Treasurer and Director of Corporate Services for the municipality, will provide an overview of the OPP costing proposal and financial analysis. Following Elisa's presentation, we will open the floor to questions. Questions should be directed to either the OPP or West Nipissing Police Services representatives. Elisa will also be available to answer questions on municipal finance and administration. Members of council are present, as the mayor stated. However, they are here as observers and will not be answering questions. I'd like to share with everyone the protocol we will follow for the questions and answers section. For those that wish to ask a question, please make your way forward to the podium and mic in the center aisle. Before asking your question, please state your name and which community you reside in. All questions and comments will be recorded by our municipal clerk and will form part of the Q&A's summary that is posted on our municipal website. Questions can be addressed in both French and English. In order to allow as many different questions or comments as possible, we ask that you refrain from repeating questions that are already been asked and answered. Limit your time at the podium to a maximum to 2 to 3 minutes when asking your questions or making comments. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible. That being said, we'll endeavor to conclude the Q&As by 9 p.m. or so. Before Lisa's presentation, I will now ask the members of the OPP and West Nipissing Police Services to introduce themselves. Starting with you, Kelly.
I am a sergeant with the OPP, and I'm also a municipal policing specialist with the Municipal Policing Bureau.
My name is Leanne Spong. I am the case manager with the Municipal Policing Bureau.
Good evening. My name is Gilbert Cadieux. I'm a sergeant with the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau.
Good evening. I'm Acting Inspector Laura Huliston, and I'm representing Northeast Region Command Staff.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Baldassare Nuccio. I am an inspector here at Northeast Region. And my responsabilité, is the business and finance portfolio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a volunteer with the West Nipissing Police Services Board and chair of the West Nipissing Police Services Board. My name is Barry Bertrand.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Chuck Seguin, chef de police, chief of police.
Thank you. And now I pass it on to Lisa for the presentation.
Thanks, Steph. And they're serious, they're all going to leave. So this is just really sort of a summary of the presentations that happened last Tuesday night. There are
copies of the proposal and some of the other financial information at either side, and much more detailed information is available on our website, as well as many of the local community centers. So if you're looking for more detailed information, it is available. But I'm just going to go over some of the summaries so that we can get to questions and then get a lot of time for people to have an opportunity to ask and answer their questions. So first I want to just take you through the timeline. The process started just over a year ago. Council passed a resolution to proceed with an OPP costing, so it was an initial council decision that was voted on at council. In December of last year, we were informed that we were in the queue and that they expected to be able to start the proposal process in summer of 2017. We got there a little bit early and we started exchanging information in May of this year. By July, we had a facility review and we were bringing back updates to council regarding the facility review. And then just last week in November, we got the council had received the OPP proposal. So I'm going to jump right into what they are proposing. So when you look at an OPP costing, what they look at is what they call an integrated detachment. So it's not sort of standalone, it is part of a larger picture. And so it is proposed that if West Nipissing transfers to OPP, that we're going to become part of this larger detachment. So we're the red on the far right-hand side, followed by Killarney, Warren, and then the green at the top is the Sudbury OPP. You can see Sudbury itself in the center is not OPP. So West Nipissing would become part of this larger detachment. We'd be identified as Zone 4 within the detachment. So what it means a little bit for people. So when I say Sudbury OPP, that means the existing detachment, that everything except the red right now. They're looking at, they've got sort of 56 staff through there. The second column is what we have here right now. So a chief, an inspector, 4 sergeants, 16 constables. At the time that they first came and took the data from us, we had 1 admin clerk, 1 full-time special constable, and 2 part-time special constables. We've now revised our situation a little bit where we have 2 full-time special constables, but the count is more or less there. And so then they're kind of rolling over to what the entire detachment will look like, and mostly it's just adding numbers across, except that you'll see that the chief and inspector end up dropping down into this uniform to be reviewed. So what happens is that the sergeants come across as sergeants, the constables come across as constables. Those above the sergeant level have to get evaluated to see what rank they might fall into. So they kind of are left sitting at this bottom line, subject to review. And so then when we go forward, what it means for what's going to be left as far as the West Nipissing's responsibility or that West Nipissing zone, as I said, we see our 4 sergeants, the 16 constables, the 2 other uniformed officers that will come through. They're going to bump us up to 2 admin clerks. Again, 1 full-time, sort of the equivalent of our special constable, and 1.25 part-time, so that's the equivalent of 1 1/4 people that are looking for the court security special constable position there as well. So in their proposal, they give us numbers for 2018, and they give it to us on this FTE, so full-time equivalent formula. And so 2018 is based on their numbers here. So uniform salaries for our sworn officers, civilians, support staff that go along with it. Other direct operating includes just sort of admin support, again, the vehicle, all that kind of stuff falls into the other direct operating costs. First year adjustment, we'll eventually get to what our startup costs are. So first year adjustment, they give us a bit of a credit back because they're going to bill us in startup costs as opposed to under operating. So that's what that adjustment is. Then when we roll forward to 2019 and 2020, I took a look at both the OPP proposal and what our West Nipissing Police Service budgets have been, and I rolled those forward into projections. So they're based on assumptions on what might happen with payroll costs, what's going to happen with utility costs. So we've made some assumptions based on sort of history, what we know is going on in the industry, some of those best practices, and I've applied those to both sets of numbers. So what we're seeing going forward after 2018 are projections based on the best information we have here. And you can see where their costs look like they're going to grow for the first 3 years of the under the OPP model. Now the thing that's different this go round, if you guys were with us the last go round when we did it, is after the first 3 solid years in an OPP formula, then they then moved to this new billing model. And I think you guys had left when I said it last time, you got to come up with a better name than that, because billing model just, leaves a lot to be desired there. So the billing model is where we go after 3 years of that sort of straight per person kind of formula. And what happens is that the billing model composes of two parts, a base service part, and the base service is an average that's applied per household to all households or all municipalities in Ontario that are policed by OPP. And so that base service covers what they consider sort of the proactive policing. So routine stuff, the ride, the community stuff, all that is part of the base service. If you've taken a look at the proposal, or you pick it up on your way in or out here, they do list those types of services that they provide under that class. As I said, it's a province-wide average, so it applies to all municipalities that have OPP policing. And the number of properties that's used as a multiplier is actually determined by MPAC. And so MPAC takes a look at households, and households include residential, but it does not include vacant land, vacant farmland, managed forest, any of those ones. They're all excluded, and it does include the commercial and industrial properties. Again, the active commercial and industrial, not the vacant, not the billboards, those types of things. So MPAC provides these numbers to us for the analysis. They provide the numbers to the OPP for billing purposes going forward if we were in an OPP model. And it's always a bit of a lag. So, you know, the 2018 is based on the 2016 MPAC, and there's always a bit of a lag on that. So then you can see the household numbers that West Nipissing has. So 7,800 households, 400 commercial, and 8260 for the total number of households. So when we look at base services, it's, you know, the base service price times this number of households. Again, if you're on the OPP website or have been talking to people in other communities, this is one of those numbers that you'll need to know. The rest of the billing model, past 3 years, is on a calls for service basis. And so again, it becomes part of this averaging across the province, and that they take a look at what the total cost for the OPP to respond to all the calls for service across the province, and then how many calls West Nipissing had in relation to that. And so it becomes this percentage of a proportionate share of the costs for the calls for service. And this is based on a 4-year average. So this is the reason we actually go into we don't jump into this model right away, is that we have data that we've provided to the OPP, so they have an idea of what kind of situation we have here. But then they also will spend the first 3 years tracking that data themselves under their system and just sort of getting averages to roll forward on the calls for service. So when we look at that model going forward for the OPP, you know, you see the base service, and so the 198, 202, 206 are again projections and assumptions that I have made based on how costs are expected to grow going forward. And so the 198.99 is the projected cost per household by 2021. And then calls for service have done the same thing, sort of based on our number of calls for service, plunked it into their template to roll forward to see what kind of numbers that looks like. And the calls for service are weighted, so they do recognize that if you're following up on a drop 911 call, might have a different time attached to it than if you're going out on a drug call. So they do have a weighted average as far as how they look at their calls for service, and that's taken into consideration. The additions are things that do come along. So there is, if there is overtime beyond that, then they do actually bill back for the overtime. Court security is an add-on, and so, but court security we get revenue from as well. I haven't included the revenue, but we do get revenue from court security. So that's what the additions is. It's those types of things that might be just a little bit above and beyond the contract. So then we take a look at what it's going to get at, what it's going to cost us to get there. So like I said in the first slide, we have these startup costs, and so there's sort of a summary of the startup costs first year that the OPP would require if we're going with an OPP costing model. There's been a little bit of questions regarding, you know, equipment that we already have, what's the implication of that, and that if the equipment is the same model, the same stuff, they will take a look at it and there will be a credit back. If it's not, then you know, we've got the startup cost, and then we would then dispose of our own equipment that we have and vehicles that we have now. The other big part of things is what it's going to cost as far as severance and pension adjustment. So the blue section there is severance costs for the uniform officers. So we are actually assuming that all of our uniform officers are going to move over to the OPP. So even under that scenario, though, there is severance language in their collective agreement, so there is severance costs attached to them in the tune of around $500,000. That's that blue chunk there. Our civilians are the red chunk. Our civilians are treated differently. So our civilians aren't a guaranteed transfer. But as you saw at the early part, they are looking, or they will need to fill some civilian spots. So I've made the assumption in my calculations that 2 of our civilians will go over into admin positions, and that 2 of our civilians will come over into special constable positions. But the civilians do have a different process to go through. So then we're looking at severance costs for civilians as the red portion, and then the large green portion is about $1.8 million, and that's the pension adjustment. So in the event that our officers move to OPP, we're responsible to make sure that their pension, their years of service, is equivalent in the OPP pension as it is in the existing pension. So that's a big part of what it is. And so we actually had sent that out and sent some information off to some actuaries to pull, again, best projections right now. So this is if it happens right now, what it would cost to go through. Now, pension adjustments are always susceptible to changes in interest rates, changes in inflation rates, because that changes all the assumptions that pension groups make going forward. So actually a rise in interest rates, though it sucks for borrowing, would really help pension a lot. But that's what we're looking at. So about $2.5 million altogether of exit costs to sort of disband the West Nipissing Police Service. And so then we'll start looking at what it looks like rolled up all together. And like I said, in some of the other handouts there, you can see the details. So you can see in this first year, the orange is OPP and the blue is West Nipissing Police. So you can see in the first year, it's actually a more significant cost. And that has to do with picking up those startup costs for buying that equipment, and the fact that I've completely missed altogether the fact that we are going to require a new facility. So yeah, as part of this, I'm going to back up a whole step here and make sure we get that part in there, is that the OPP has said that our existing policing facility would not meet their standard. So we will be looking at building a new facility if we were to go with the OPP policing. I've used a ballpark of a $8 million construction cost for the facility. I've assumed a loan for 30 years on that $8 million. We've also assumed facility costs for obviously utilities, for HR to clean and janitorial, for maintenance on it, for what I call capital cost replacement, but that's really putting a little bit of money away for the big things that are going to break down the road. So all of that falls in and it impacts all of our years of what the OPP potentially could cost the municipality. So that first year, like I said, we see this big chunk because we're investing in the facility and we've got these costs to assume as far as startup costs. 2019, you see it's getting a little bit closer. That still includes all that facility cost. In 2020, again, still a little bit more expensive with the OPP. 2021 is the year that we would, again, assuming that we started January 1st, 2018, 2021 would be the year that we would roll to the billing model instead, where that base calls and the calls for service. And that's where suddenly we see a significant difference in the projections there. And so then you see it kind of grow forward. So the drop, even there, that still includes our facility costs, and it still is that drop. And then you see both lines are continuing to grow at about 2%-ish, is where we have, by the time we're sort of that 3, 4, 5 years out, that's what the overall assumption when we look at the budgets, both West Nipissing Police and OPP are growing in around that 2%-ish mark. And again, realize that projections are projections based on the best set of information that we have right now. And so when we roll it all together to what it looks like as far as how we get to payback and things like that. So this is sort of the cumulative savings, what we're saving year over year. So you see initially, it's going downhill, and that's because those first few years, it is going to cost more with the OPP than with West Nipissing Police Service. And then as soon as we get to the 2021 and it starts, we have that more significant savings, and we're talking in the tune of $700,000+ a year of savings year over year once we hit that 3-year or that billing model cycle. And then you start to see that we're actually going to have savings. Now, this doesn't include the fact that we still have to pay for that $2.5 million. So the point we're looking for is at what point we cross over that 2.5 again. So you can see in 2025, that we are sort of better than 2.5 million of total cumulative savings, and we have then hit our payback period. Now, there are various different ways that council, when we get to that point, if we get to that point, can discuss how, though that 2.5 million is funded internally, externally, what we do with it. I've taken a look at interest, what might be included on interest, and we're still only adding about 100,000 even over that on interest. So we're still clearing it at 2025 as sort of that payback period. And that's kind of the financials in the nuts and bolts. So that's what we're looking with. And like I said, it was just sort of that fast update. If you're looking for more details on the financials, on the proposal, absolutely, there are some paper copies here, and I directed to our website for various links. We are also posting question and answers that we've had already, and as they continue to come through on the website as well. So if there's something you think of afterwards, you can direct it through the website. We can get an answer back up for you. But I think at this time I'm going to turn the podium back to Steph, and we'll get him to open up the Q&A.
No, but I just... Thank you, Lisa. As Lisa mentioned, if you go to the municipal website, all the information is there. We update the questions and answers daily. The OPP costing proposal is on our website, and so is Elisa's financial evaluation of the proposal. So everything can be seen on the West Nipissing website. We have paper copies. Monsieur Descamps just asked if people don't have access to the internet. We've provided paper copies. They're at Town Hall in Sturgeon, Municipal Building in Verner, and all public libraries. So we've made that point to accommodate those that don't have access to the internet.
Even as we go ahead, are you going to continue to provide that?
Yes, correct. That's it. Yeah, we'll provide. So that being said, now we'll open the floor to questions. And again, I'll reiterate, I'll ask if you want to make a comment or ask a question to the panel, please make your way forward to the middle aisle. The microphone is on. And please limit your time to 2-3 minutes so we can get as many questions or comments in. And please state your name and which community you reside in.
Hi, I'm Mike Lalonde. I live over on Evansville Drive, Sturgeon Falls right here. First one's a statement, and I don't think everybody understands with talking to a lot of my neighbors. And one is, the new building would have to provide for the OPP. We're going to be paying for that out of taxpayers' dollars, no matter what. It all comes out of our pockets for taxes. And we just finished doing renovations to the old building, which the OPP get a new building. We're going to have to pay for renovations to that old building again because it's got the jail and everything in it. So that's going to drive costs up. Plus, the new building, throughout the years, the time we have it paid for, it's going to require renovations again. So our taxes are going to reflect in that as well. Plus, for the OPP, we had a costing once before. When they came in, they went back and they came back with another costing, $700,000 less. I don't see how that can happen. It's with our police force here, we have a good police force, no disrespect to the OPP, you're very good as well. I think I let you know that before. But our police force, we see them. They're out there, they do a damn good job. They have the facilities, they have the cars, and the works. If we give that up and we go to OPP, and then 5 years down the road or 10, we decide, no, we want to go back, there is no going back because we'll have to pay for all the infrastructure, the cars, the policemen, the tools they use once again. And believe me, I know my business. I'm a retired military police sergeant major, and one of our jobs on our courses is setting up military police debts. So I know how the costing works up to a point. So my question to the OPP is, how did you go back and number crunch and come in so low? And as well, did you figure in costing for the years where they say we're gonna break even and it's gonna start to save us money? How is that gonna save us money compared to our police force who came back and said, yeah, every year, this is how much policing is gonna cost, because it goes up every year. It's just like wages and taxes, keeps on going up. So if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your question. I understand there's two parts to that. So the previous costing that was developed, that would have been under a different methodology at that time. Since that time, there's been the introduction of the OPP billing model in 2015. So our new costing process, there actually, just to step back a little bit, there was a moratorium that was put on costings at the time of the introduction of the new OPP billing model that came into effect January 1st, 2015. So when the municipalities requested a costing from that point, it's under a new methodology that was realigned, taking into consideration some of those parameters. The other part to your question? I'm trying to remember what that. Oh, it was.
Is it the difference in price you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, the difference would be, it was under a different methodology at that time. And there was another, was there another part to your question as well?
Yes, well, that was one part, the $700,000 difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't comment on what it was. I don't have those figures before me.
Right.
But what I can say is that it was a different methodology at that time.
Right, okay, then, my other one was to the town, was the amount, including the new building, renovations to the old building, and then renovations taking the new building down the road.
Yeah, so the new building is included in the what you've seen, and like I said, I've included in those numbers what I call sort of a capital cost allowance, but it really is that putting a little bit of money aside every year for the fact that we're going to need to fix big things down the road in that building. So that is all actually considered in the numbers you've seen there. As far as the existing facility, so right now there aren't any definite plans for the existing facility, so we don't have renovation plans for the existing facility. So no, that's not included in any of the analysis right now. If council chooses to go with an OPP costing and we suddenly have vacant space there, then we will certainly take a look at operations. If there's efficiencies to be created in our operations, what we want to do with that space. But that would be a choice that we would look at. Are we actually saving money out of a different facility, out of a different thing? Are we actually saving money in our operations by doing renovations on that side? It's not an automatic that we need to do renovations. So I mean, we can leave it sitting as it is for a couple of years while we sort things out. So that part has not been included in the numbers.
I don't see anyone at the podium. There must be more questions or comments.
I got another one. How much are taxes going to go up because of this?
I'm going to start backwards and then work forwards. So in the end, when you look at the numbers, when you look sort of at the point where we hit 2025, after that, we're going to see $700,000 to $800,000 of savings per year that could turn into tax reductions, it could turn into other projects, it could turn into other things. Between here and there, those startup costs and those first years as we're funding those startup costs, council will have some options as it does every year when we look at budgets. So when we look at that, they've got the option of taking things from reserve, they've got the options of adding things to taxes, they've got all kinds of options available to them, and those choices haven't been made, but they'll be looked at when we look at the global budget and what the global budget looks like each year post a decision here.
Thank you. Monsieur Thier?
Oui, Guy Etier, the surgeon. When I looked at the proposal, there's no mention of, will all the services be maintained? I understand the staffing, and that's for review anytime, I guess. It's just that I don't understand where the savings are from. If the OPP is the best paid police force in the province, 90% of the budget is for salaries. You pay more, but it costs less. I just don't follow with the same compliment. Where does numbers come from?
I believe what you're referring to there is overall in year 4, when costs fall under the billing model. And one of the benefits of the billing model is that costs are shared across the province. It's a provincial cost recovery model. So all of our 324 municipalities are charged on a per property basis. And that provides much stability to the model and stability to our costs. In fact, for the 4 billing years that have been incorporated into the model, the base per property cost has only changed by $1. So it was the difference in how we moved to this model and how it's provincially focused rather than at a local focused and linked back to the specific staffing numbers that afforded the organization to keep those costs very stable across the province.
I guess if I can just supplementary to that, it's just that with the billing when you look over the numbers the year following on the call per service, if everything is maintained and there is more than anticipated, then that's all extra on top of what we've been presented. You know, there's 2 options, if I understand correctly. There's a category 5 and a 10. One is for where you have, I guess, bill for service, and the other one's a straight contract. Still exists?
Again, that would be under the billing model. So the
Yes.
proposal that's before you right now is what we call transitional contract. So that's the FTE, or full-time equivalent
Only the first 3
staffing
years.
base. Right, so that's for the first
Yes.
3 years plus whatever months it takes us to get to the end of the year.
Yes.
Then the billing model, it's divided into 2 main categories. So it has the base per property cost,
Yep.
and then it has another category that's called calls for service. And the best way to think of that is it is a variable usage cost. So there is a base cost for having that level of infrastructure, administration, training, those types of things that fall, and the proactive policing that fall under the base. And then there is also another category where all municipalities in the province, the total cost is calculated for specific calls for service that we deem billable. And then each municipality pays their apportionment share of that total provincial cost. So yes, it's based on a 4-year rolling average, however, to prevent any spikes or valleys and stabilize the cost.
Thank you. Just as an additional on the service thing, the last time, I don't know how it's proposed to be handled this time, but it was going to be an integrated detachment with North Bay, I think. And the question came up, and I asked what happens when you need the services at night? And I was told there was going to be a phone in the lobby. And I hope this time it's not the same. There will be a body here.
You want to speak to coverage?
I can speak with that. I can advise that the OPP will provide 24-hour police coverage for the municipality of West Nipissing. Okay.
I think he's asking if the front door is
It's
open.
going to be a person dispatching 24/7, a live person, not just a telephone.
Our officers will be dispatched through our provincial communication center in North Bay.
So the answer is we won't have a person.
There will always be officers available 24/7 in the municipality of West Nipissing, absolutely. But the 911 calls will be received to the provincial communication center in North Bay.
Okay, sir, I would ask, if you want to ask a question, please make your way to the podium so that everyone can, no, just so that everyone can hear it.
Dispatch is inside.
Okay, I have a loud voice. So we can't answer the question like politicians. He was asking if we're going to have a live person here in Sturgeon Falls at the building 24/7. Yes or no?
Well, we expect our officers to be out on patrol in their vehicles, and they work with mobile workstations. So there will be officers in the municipality of West Nipissing working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, absolutely. Available to respond to calls for service.
But we're not going to have a walk-in dispatcher available.
If you're asking if somebody comes to the building, we'll send an officer to the building, absolutely, yes.
Right, because right now, with our local police force, I can go there anytime and I can talk to somebody.
And the same will be true under the OPP.
Geez, in Pembroke or in Petawawa, I got to use a phone. I can't just walk in to the police station because there's a phone outside saying, yeah, if you need help, use the phone. So,
Just so I can clarify here, are you asking if there is a dispatcher that works locally within the building?
yes, that's what the
No,
gentleman.
our dispatchers are centralized at our
Yes.
provincial communication centers.
Yes. Okay, so the call would go to the dispatcher and then it goes out to the car.
That's correct.
And sometimes the police officer will get a hold of you and meet you somewhere if required.
Well, not sometimes. If they're requested, then a police officer will
Right.
be in touch with you.
Okay, I got to throw one thing your way. Being an ex-military policeman, and when we had OPP, we had to, both in Pembroke and in Kingston, we had to go out and back up the OPP because there wasn't enough OPP officers to handle a certain call, or they had a person stopped, and I can bring back stories. And we had to go out there and back them up because they couldn't get the person out of the car, and they were alone, and their nearest backup was 30 minutes away. Here in Sturgeon Falls, our officers all aren't sent to one call. Even if there's a gun call, they don't all get dispatched. There's always somebody back. Plus, they always have backup. Whereas the OPP, you can spread yourselves quite thin.
With our integrated service delivery model, we ensure that we have adequate coverage for all the municipalities that we serve. In addition to having the officers in their respective zones, we can call on neighboring detachments as well. We rely on technology heavily. We have closest to the call technology, which allows us to have officers who might not be necessarily working in your particular zone, but maybe traveling through it or near it, who we can dispatch to assist with calls for service. We also have fleet tracker technology, which allows us to know where all of our resources are at any given time, that we can deploy as needed to any area that's required. I can't speak to your specific circumstances because I'm not familiar with it, but I can tell you that we use analytics to put our officers in the right places at the right time and to be available for calls for service when they come in.
Lisanne Nord-Ouest, Sturgeon Falls. From what I understand right now, OPP is not billing the municipality when they come in to assist, like the murder that happened 2 weeks ago. Now, from what I understand under the Act, you sent a non-payable invoice to municipalities in those cases. Is this the case in 2016? Do we know that number in case that, because in the future, that model of invoicing could change. OPP could be billing the municipalities for services rendered, and that is a cost that is going to be very substantial for us. Could we know what that cost is in 2016?
I think we'll direct that question to Chief Séguin.
Thank you. For the first time in years that I can ever remember, in 2017, we received correspondence from the Commissioner of the OPP advising that we had received assistance from their officers and that it was tabulated. And the initial figure in the initial document wasn't really clear. And every police service in the municipal police service in the province received this. So I addressed correspondence back to the Commissioner asking for detail, and I did get that. Now, this is data based on the DAR, sorry, somebody help me out with DAR?
Daily activity
report, thank you. It totaled 1,088 hours at a cost of initially what we were told was $112,400. The detail of that report, and again, I don't know what the intent of sending the report out was, chiefs throughout the province were asking themselves the same question. It provides a breakdown of assistance received from the OPP in a number of different categories. 498 hours of that 1088, however, is just classified as other, so I don't know what that is. Some of what is there is probably most appropriate. Use of canine to assist us, absolutely. And arguably, I really can't argue that these hours weren't received. For as long as I can remember, in 36 years of policing, we've been doing this. I have, in 2016, some 463 occurrences of assisting other agencies, other policing agencies. Less than a week ago, I had 3 officers assisting the APS at a scene at Garden Village early morning. We go and back each other up and help each other out and render assistance where we can. It would take me the better part of a week to go back through 463 occurrences and see what those assistance calls were and to whom, and to calculate the number of hours that we lent assistance to whomever. So yes, we did receive that. Why we received it in 2017 and never before, I don't know. But those are the figures that were given. Do we track that data the way the OPP do? No. So I really can't tell you what the dollar value of the assistance we gave to other agencies would be.
Okay, fair enough. But when we look at service through West Nipissing, it's such a small force. The assistance by OPP is like the specialized services that they offer, West Nipissing, could be a billable service in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that should be part of your budget. The other part of your budget should be to buy a boat. Now, you said in your statement that you were caught off guard with this, but in 2018, you will be responsible to patrol West Nipissing waters, from what I understand. Now, the budget does not cover the cost of a boat. Now, that should have been it's like we're comparing 2 budgets, but we don't really have the real true picture of what it costs the municipal force to actually run it. Now, if we have a boat, you will have to train your officers. I don't know how many officers on West Nipissing are trained Marine. Do you know offhand?
Corey, 6?
Okay, so you have 6 officers that will require some sort of refresher because they haven't, I don't know if they logged in their hours last year. So they will need, so that's a cost, that's a real cost to us that will need to be put in the budget going forward if we do decide, or if council decides to go with West Nipissing, so that us as residents know the actual cost of keeping West Nipissing, or if we go with OPP that already have all those services in place. So is that something you're thinking of giving the citizens, like an idea of how much this will cost for a boat, for training the officers, overtime costs? Because I'm guessing that if there is a call on the waters and you're keeping someone behind, that means you're going to have to call in someone to go to that call, right?
Okay, so your 2 questions are, what are we doing about Marine?
Yes.
And,
no,
the first part?
What are you going to be projecting a cost for replacing?
That's already been done.
Okay.
It's in our capital forecast. If I could remind everybody that up until collision in 2015, the West Nipissing Police Service had its own vessel. That vessel is a means of transportation to islands in the French River where we have obligations to answer calls for service, and that's what it was used for. Up until now, and the Act has not changed officially, waterways policing has been a provincial responsibility, with the exception of some municipalities named by the minister who had to assume those responsibilities. West Nipissing is not one of those municipalities. So that boat was a cruiser. An unfortunate accident occurred in the summer of 2015, and the boat was totaled. In the interim, we entered into a partnership with the Anishinaabeg Police Service, and we're sharing resources with them. Their boat is parked in our garage. Their boat is available to us and them. Their boat has been used by our officers to do their job. Not enough. Unfortunate. Now, going forward, again, we have proposed legislation at the provincial level with a change to the Police Services Act that would turn over waterways policing to municipal police or municipalities. I have been working with the board since 2009 to put together a capital forecast on all the major purchases that this police service has to make, stemming out 10 years. And there are capital monies set aside to make a purchase or a lease, whatever we have to do when the time comes to meet the needs of the community. That being said, when that time comes, what are the options going to be? And in fairness to my counterparts, I'm just going to share my thought process, is if municipalities now have these responsibilities and the OPP do not, and they have a surplus of equipment, then I would be reaching out to the commissioner to see what can I purchase at what price that is usable by my officers. 6 of them trained in Marine to go out anytime, ready to go out today if need be. So there are contingencies in place. There are a lot of unknowns and assumptions out there. And once the act is passed after third reading, and then the implementation schedule is given to us when we know we assume these responsibilities, then we will deal with it. But in the meantime, putting money into capital reserve has been done for a number of years. On that last topic, this is new to municipal police services who surround Lake Nipissing. And are there opportunities for partnerships with our neighboring police services? Absolutely. So we will work together, and I'm committed to that, and I've already had discussions with the chief from North Bay. We're already in a partnership with the APS, and we work in partnership with the OPP.
Thank you, Chief. Any more questions? I see somebody approaching. Oh, there's several now. We'll have a lineup.
Bien, bonsoir. Mon nom, c'est Lise Sénécal, puis je reviens à la maison, puis je me sens comme... J'ai jamais parti parce que ça a l'air comme en 1999. So, good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. I am from Sturgeon Falls. I'm an ex-consular. I was part of the first whatever happened in 1999, which I think was great. I had a question at the beginning, but since hearing, I think I had my answer. And when it comes to budget, let's face it, anybody that worked with number, we can play with that. So for me, it's not really important, the budget, okay? It is at the end, but we need to remember there's so many things that can, and anybody in this room that work with money, including our nice staff there, saying that we're gonna have a price for 6 years, and after that, it's gonna go down, it's not true. We all know that. Everything goes up, they don't go down when it comes to budget. We know that, okay? So my comment tonight is, you know what? I'm not gonna discuss the service because I think, and I said that 10 years ago, more than that, 20 years ago. No wonder, okay? I said so. I said OPP, they will offer good services. I had no doubt in my mind. Our force, they will offer good services also. So therefore, please, we need to look a little bit beyond the money, okay? We need to look at the history. We need to look at what we can give. We need to look at what belongs to this community, which is our police force, okay? Deep down, if the best services win, I will, if I would be a councillor, which is not, obviously, I would support it. But at this point of time, I'll ask my question to staff. Is any time, because it's so fast, this is what I don't get. We started working on transition board. We argue, Paul, remember? We argue for police force, for anything for a year. Then we argue another year, what are you gonna do? Then we went for costing and blah, blah, blah. And big thing. The only thing it did for a few years, it caused so much hardship among the council itself. Because, you know, I see that as a hockey team. Die-hard Maple Leaf and die-hard Montreal Canadian, okay? So what do? We go on council, we need to take that out and put it there. We need to do what's best for the municipality. Would everybody agree with that? I think so. So my question to staff, as at any point, because my God, not even a year and you're talking January 2018, what's the rush? Is there a fire? We have a fire department, it still exists, right? Okay, what's the rush about that? My question to staff, is ever this council had discussed a referendum? Yes or no? I don't want any big story. Yes or no? Was it ever discussed at the table? Was it ever brought up by this council? Well, you know what? Enough is enough. 20 years we've been arguing about choosing our force. 20 years we've been having good services. Is it the best? No. With OPP would be the best? No. Okay? But it's really good. I almost said a bad word. I hate the way that this is done because I'm turning my back and I don't like that. I like to talk to people. I don't like to turn my back. And I'm talking to people, and those people are cutting. The issue here, what is your answer? Yes or no?
So Lise, I'll attempt to answer this. I mean, we're 3 staff here.
Okay, I do.
This is, we take direction from council. Your question about council referencing a referendum on this subject matter, all 3 of us started in 2009, 2010. I'm not going to speak on behalf of council. I never do that, but you're asking the question to us, to my knowledge.
Because I cannot talk to council. I can turn around, I know all of them.
But
I mean,
my answer to your question is, to my knowledge, at the council table during council meetings.
On the agenda.
Referendums have not been discussed.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to address the council with my back to them, because we got to see in West Nipissing the council that support the people that live in West Nipissing. Okay? Because they should bring back to the table, because in 1999 was the first time. We thought, and I know we did the right decision at that point of time. 2012, not going to discuss that, I wasn't there, right? And now again, in 2017, and rush it to January 2018? December 5th? Come on, come on. So my question, my back to you guys, and I'll turn around. I can't because you won't hear me. Oh, I bet you can hear me if I really try. Why? Why is it not? Because we try our best in 1999, again in 2012. Why don't you get the people to make a choice? So if you are re-elected, hopefully, right? All of you, I'm sure you're thinking that way. If you are re-elected, it won't be, the only thing you will have to do will respect what the people of West Nipissing has done, and we will go forward instead of coming back to think and losing time for a beautiful municipality that I've been gone for 10 years. And what do I see? Coming back to argument that should have been settled. If we cannot settle it as a councillor, let the people decide. And then at this point of time, everybody will go on. So we'll see, all of you that are part of council right now, including the mayor, what's going to be brought out on December the 5th. A question, are we having a referendum or not, and let the people decide that pay the bill at the end of the day. Because we're 14,000 something people. We got 9 people on council voting. That means about 55% that they need to win, OPP or the city, right? West Nipissing. Put that with the number of people that can vote, which is 78% of the population. I counted before coming in. 78% of West Nipissing can vote. 55% of that is a lot more than 9 vote or 5 vote. So let the people decide on this one, even if we all know that council were created to represent the people that they represent. But at some point of time, we have to be man or woman enough to say at this point of time, no, it's not working out. Let the people decide, and we'll go on with our job, which is the economy, the senior, our youth, the road, everything else. Let's bury that thing once and for all. So thank you very much.
Sir, I'm just going to stop you there. I saw some people get up to ask questions. We'll allow other people an opportunity. If we have time at the end, we'll allow you for a supplemental question, if you don't mind, okay?
Okay, but this was just going to go along
Okay,
with what she said.
but if you can save that comment, and we'll allow other people to access the mic, if you don't mind, okay? Thank you.
I don't want to lose that.
Because I see some people getting up and waiting patiently.
Well, I'm not as passionate as Lise. My name is Celeste Auger-Prou, and I work as a community health promoter in this community. And my question is for the OPP. So currently, we benefit from a really good working relationship with our local police. We work with the school boards, we work with the district health unit, we work with community centers, building capacity in our communities, working on injury reduction, drug awareness, drug education, wellness with our youth. Now, and we can, whenever we call upon our municipal force for assistance, for attendance, we always get good participation. So they sit on Peer Power, which is a local committee that works with youth to teach youth about resiliency and so on. What is the OPP's commitment to assigning officers to schools, to community centers, to partake in perhaps weekend activities or school hour activities and so on, to participate on committees that would benefit our youth?
So I'll speak on that. So the OPP has a strong commitment to the partnerships that we have in our community. We work very closely with our community agencies and stakeholders, and we take pride in the collaboration that the collaboration that we have with these agencies. So what I can tell you is from a service delivery model, we will have a community safety officer who will be assigned to activities that you speak of. So attending meetings, attending the schools, and in addition to that, our expectation is that all officers will be fully engaged in the communities that we work in, and we expect them to work in conjunction with our community partners and agencies in the work that they do. So you will have a strong commitment from us on that front.
Excellent. So you're saying that a community safety officer would be assigned to West Nipissing?
You will have a community safety officer assigned to our detachment area, the West Nipissing detachment area, yes.
Okay. And can you ensure that there will be a bilingual community safety officer assigned to this area?
We understand that the municipality of West Nipissing is a francophone, designated francophone community, and we will assure that there are French language services available. I also want to say that community mobilization is a huge part of what we're involved in now, and that really very much involves working in partnership with our community agencies, and that's a #1 priority for us as well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Edna Webster, and I live in Sturgeon Falls. I would like some clarification. Chuck, kindly. How many officers do we have? Uniformed staff.
16 constables, 4 sergeants, 1 inspector, and 1 chief.
Gee, that adds up to 21 if my math is correct.
22.
22.
16, 4,
Missed
1, and
one.
1.
One of those days, what can I say? If you all picked up this publication, you will see that on page 8, the OPP will be providing us with 6 uniformed staff officers. And in my estimation, no matter how good the OPP officers are, and I'm sure they're superb, they cannot cover physically the area and the duties of 22 of West Nipissing's finest. And they are the finest. Thank you.
Did you want to clarify those numbers?
Sorry, I'm not able to speak to, I don't know what document that you have with you there.
Which document did you reference, ma'am?
The one that was provided to us, all, the cover page looks like this.
And which page number were you referring to?
Page 8, upper left hand.
Page 8, upper left hand.
Item, uniform staff salaries, 2017 estimate, I count 6. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you know what she's doing? No.
What is she
No,
counting?
She's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Oh, okay.
6.
All right. Okay. That helped, thank you. Actually, what you're looking at, that is a template. That's the cost recovery formula that is applied. If you turn to page 9, that's where the specifics about the full-time equivalent, the staffing numbers are outlined. And under the positions, you will see that there are 22 uniform members. In addition, there is an apportionment allocated from the supervisory positions of staff sergeant and inspector out of the greater detachment catchment area.
Hi, my name's Rick Bain. I'm from Cache Bay. I just want to say that I have no problems with West Nipissing Police Service right now. I think they're doing a wonderful job with the things they have to work with. On the other hand, though, as a pensioner on a fixed income, the bottom line is tax dollars, and the OPP proposal is going to be a lot cheaper than what it costs for the West Nipissing Police Service. Nobody's going to lose a job. There'll be a couple of jobs created, so I just want to say that I'm in favor of the OPP proposal. And if when the province does download the waterway policing on the municipalities, I think the OPP already has all the equipment they need. So any capital stuff West Nipissing has, we could maybe use it on something else if we go with the OPP. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peggy Thompson, and I live in Sturgeon Falls. A couple of questions, I'll make them short. The first one is, have you ever seen a costing process where the decision has been made in 3 weeks? Is that a short timeline by other standards, would you say?
It varies from municipality to municipality. We've seen under and seen much longer.
Okay, so if it was under, were they having talks before that? It's just that I've been doing a lot of reading, and I think that it's a lot of material to digest. It's a lot of numbers. It's for a lay person, it's not the easiest thing to understand. So I would like to, it's not really a question for any of you, it's for the counselors in the back. I would like them to consider not doing this before Christmas. I think it's reckless at the very least. If we have 6 months, is it about 6 months? These figures are good for 6 months. If there even was an opportunity for us to have other forums where it's not just us talking to the numbers people, I think there should be an opportunity for us to have a discussion with our council, who has just come off of one of the most tumultuous 18 months that I can remember in recent history. And I am not sure that I can trust that a decision is going to be made on fact instead of agenda. And I, as a resident of Sturgeon Falls, I'm not comfortable with 3 weeks. Okay, so now a question. Okay, can you clarify a little bit what you mean by background and security verification process? What does that mean? What do the police officers for West Nipissing Police Service have to go through before they can be hired under the OPP?
Okay. That process takes place after the decision by the municipality, and then we enlist our Career Development Bureau, who are the subject matter experts and look after all of our hiring and our human resource matters. They are responsible at that point for conducting a background and security verification process on any of the uniform members that choose to apply to transition to the OPP. As well, there is also a process for any civilian members. Certainly, they would be able to apply for the positions that have been outlined in the proposal as well. So that the Career Development Bureau will attend and conduct an information session for all employees of the West Nipissing Police Service should the municipality choose to amalgamate with the OPP, and then that all of those questions that they have, individualized questions that they have, will be addressed in that forum.
But is that just limited to, let's say, a background criminal check, or is that, is there mental health checks? Is there some sort of physical, is there certain things that they need to do before they are hired by the OPP besides, like if I want to volunteer at the school, I go and I get a background check that says I'm not a crazy person and I don't have a criminal list this long, I can go and volunteer at the lunch duty. Is it different, the application process and the check for the police officers? What exactly is it that you're looking at so that they could be absorbed by the OPP?
The process follows our experienced officer process very closely. So what I would suggest for all those details, if you visit the OPP.ca website and go under what we do in the Career Development Bureau, and those questions can be answered then.
Okay. Do I have time for another one?
One more.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's a lot. Okay. I probably don't have to tell you that this is quite a unique area. We have a very strong Francophone population. We have a very strong and really good relationship with the Native community. There's also a very strong Anglophone population here as well. There's probably not a lot of areas that you police that look like West Nipissing. There is something special about this area here. And I just think that it's important before we make a decision that just affects West Nipissing, I think that we also have to have an opportunity to talk to the Anishinaabe Police Service, which I have spoken to many people from the Native community locally that are very happy with the West Nipissing Police Service. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I really don't know either way how I go. The cops are not at my door every day. I don't have a lot of access to the OPP or to the West Nipissing Police Service. I bump into them at the grocery store. They're doing a good job. I feel safe. They're at the schools, they're at the hospital, they're volunteering, they're at the soup kitchen, they're around. I want to make sure we take the time to make a proper decision here, and I want to make sure if it is the OPP, I want you to know who we are, and I want us to have the opportunity to know who you are. That's really important. And that's it for me.
Hi, my name is Patricia DeForge, and I actually live in Sturgeon Falls, and I also have a business in Sturgeon Falls. As the chief knows me very well, we have to deal with the chief and the consul all the time. I own a taxi in Sturgeon Falls. We have bylaws and regulations we have to follow. They're enforced by the police force here. Are you guys going to enforce that? Are we going to have a special officer that's going to take care of us? Because every year we have to get inspected, we have to have safeties, we have to pay our duties to them, or I would say to the consul. Are we still going to have that same?
Absolutely.
That's a decision of the municipality, but certainly bylaw enforcement can be included in your contract.
Also, I also have another question. Every year we do a charity barbecue that goes, all the proceeds goes to Shop with a Cop. A lot of you guys probably don't know what it is. What it is that all of our proceeds that we make from this barbecue goes to the kids of the West Nipissing community for Christmas. I was told that OPP don't have that charity. So does that mean when you guys come in, we're not allowed to do that for our kids?
No, I participated.
No, I wouldn't say that's not the case. We participate in a lot of different charity events, and certainly if that's one that's important to this community, I'm certain that we would participate as well.
Now, don't know if you guys really know about the program, but I'm pretty sure Chuck Sagan can let you guys know a lot about it. What it is that you guys go shopping with the kids also at Christmas time. Are you guys willing to do that too with the kids?
Inspector Nuccio has himself been involved in that, and although I personally haven't been involved in that, I know that our officers are very involved around the holidays in many different types of events like Stuff a Cruiser and many types of charity events where we assist people in the community, including the telethon that's coming up this weekend in North Bay and Sudbury. So we are very active in our communities, and we certainly care about our communities and will participate in these types of events, absolutely.
So if you guys do come through and the decision is made that we have OPP and we lose our fine man of West Nipissing Police, when we hire a driver, they go through a criminal check. Through the West Nipissing, within 24 hours, we get told if they're approved or not. We ran into some cases where they had to deal with the OPP, and it took 6 weeks. Do you know how long it takes for us to find drivers and then get told that, I'm sorry, it takes too long, so I can't go driving for you guys?
I can't speak to that specific situation. I'm not familiar with it. On average, our criminal record checks take 3 to 6 weeks. It depends on the situation.
So then in that way, I won't get serviced properly in that place.
Well,
Which would mean that I wouldn't be able to service the West Nipissing as drivers. And say, for example, this gentleman lives in Evanville. One day his vehicle's not working, and I got to go pick him up. Because it takes so long to get approved from a driver, I'm short of drivers, which means I won't be able to service West Nipissing. So my business, having OPP, will suffer to having you guys instead of keeping our finest men.
I can say that as a detachment commander, I am a detachment commander, that we always have room for discussion on these types of things, and certainly the detachment commander that is assigned to your detachment, you could have those discussions with he or she.
I think for me as a personal person that also pays tax in this town, I think the decision to be made for this is being made too soon. I think there's still too much to be discussed about this. I think Sturgeon Falls, as a community that likes to work with each other, is going to suffer if OPP comes in. I'm sorry.
Getting back to our counselor, you were a counselor? You were? When she brought up the point, council, I was at the last council meeting, and then I rewatched it on the web as well. Council has 6 months to decide at this costing that the OPP have given us. It was also council that decided to vote on the 5th of December. It wasn't the OPP, it was council. Now, some of the council in discussion at last week's meeting said they would discuss whether they put it off and give it more time, but they were going to discuss that on the 5th of December, which doesn't give us any input. If they decide, no, we're going to vote, and some councillors were ready to vote on the 5th of December, then we have no say. The people have no say because some of those councillors said they represent their people. Now, there were several councillors there who did say, it's not enough time, I have to talk to my constituents out there, which was very good. But if there's a council vote and those 3 or 4 councillors are outvoted, we have no say as a people. We have to go with what the council does. But the council was given 6 months. They should take that time, get out there and talk to us, and if so, put it to a referendum and let us decide. It's going to be our money, our policing. So it should be up to us. This isn't about putting up a new rink outside. This is about our lives every day and our police force. And who's going to take care of us every day? It should be up to us. Thank you.
Mon nom, c'est Robert Pilon. Je demeure à Sturgeon Falls. By way of
a little bit of history. I will tell you that, and we can say this, in 1999, I was the OPP superintendent who was making the proposal to the council of the day. And I did a really good job. And the vote was very close at that council. In 2013, I don't think it was 2012, I think it was 2013, I was involved in the costing and I kept up with what was going on, and I knew in my heart what was going to happen. And I think that I don't have any real questions. I just want to make a statement. And I want to make sure that everyone in this room and everyone in West Nipissing understands that policing is a motherhood issue. It's an issue that everyone cares very deeply about. When you need a police officer, it doesn't matter what their shoulder flash is, you need a police officer. And what I will tell you from my experience, 30 plus years in the OPP and many, many years living in this municipality, is that if the vote is for the West Nipissing Police Service, we're going to get good service. If the vote is for the OPP, I guarantee you we'll get good service, because I know about that service. What I'd like for you to understand is that it's not about money, and it's not about which one's better of the two police services. They're both capable police services. It's about what this community needs. And a lot of people here have not talked about the effect on the officers. And I'd just like to say this for a couple of minutes, because this is what's important to me. Those officers that are out, when you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, there's municipal police officers and OPP officers out there doing their job. And I can tell you, it's not an easy job. And those officers deserve for us to think about them. And if you want to know which way you should lean as far as having a police service, you need to look at your tax bill. And if you're going to save some money, that's great. But if those officers are telling you that if they move to the OPP and they have tremendous opportunities for promotion and training and better equipment and whatever they need, then you need to think about that. This isn't about you only, it's about them. And I think it's very important that you not lose sight of those facts. And I'll give you one little example, because I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I'll give you a very good example. In 1998, we took over the Kirkland Lake Police Department, and I was there at the swearing in of those officers. And one of the Kirkland Lake police officers came to me in his brand new OPP uniform, and he said to me, I have one request. We had a sexual predator in Kirkland Lake some years ago, and he did some terrible things to some young ladies here, and he lives in Kingston. And because of the municipal budget, we haven't been able to go to Kingston and get him. And I said, you get in a cruiser this afternoon and you go and get him. That's what we need to think about. What are those officers? What do they need? Because these people will tell you that they're going to provide you a good service, and I believe them. It's, are you going to save some money, and are you going to serve the community as best you can? That's all I got to say.
Hello, I'm Barbara Scott. I live in Sturgeon Falls. I have a question about bylaws, just getting back to an earlier question there. So you said you would take a look at the bylaws. Does that mean they're going to be enforced by the OPP? You're provincial?
Yeah, we could
Yes?
Yes, that's correct. It's a
Okay.
decision of council whether or not it's part of your municipal contract.
So in the municipal contract, is that in the costing already?
Yeah. In addition to, in the Police Services Act, under Section 10, so if the municipality were to enter into a contract with the OPP, you fall under Section 10 of the Police Services Act that you can have a look at and have a review. But there, it does list there that bylaw enforcement is a service that can be provided under contract by the OPP. The next step is, under Section 10, there's an establishment of a police services board. And then further discussions take place between the police services board and the detachment commander, and what bylaws are to be enforced is something that happens in that discussion. They decide which direction, because there is civilian governance that's provided to the OPP detachment commander and in consultation with. So depending on what is important and the direction of the board, that's all in consultation with the detachment commander, but it's the Police Services Act that gives that legislated ability to have bylaws enforced under contract.
So that has not been put in to the budget or anything like that? That's what I'm...
It's an included service.
It is
It's an
included?
included service when you enter into a contract with the OPP.
Thank you.
Yes, it is included. I'm just going to stop you there. If you'd like to make your way to the podium, please.
It's included, but the specific bylaw.
Thank you.
That's up for discussion, right? Yes.
Good evening. Just to be clear on the bylaws. So if I have a neighbor that starts a machine shop, my neighbor starts a machine shop and he starts working till 2 in the morning because he likes to make money, he's very ambitious, he's got a lot of friends. So if I call West Nipissing Police, there's a noise bylaw issue, they will show up most of the time. They're not too busy because it depends how urgent it is. So give you a scenario, a neighbor that starts making a lot of noise at 2 in the morning, starts a business, or a dog that barks, or you will come and help us out before we get into a fight with this neighbor.
That's correct. Yes,
So there's
absolutely.
not an increase in crimes and violence and... Okay, thank you.
Sir, can I just ask you to state your name, please?
Yes, Mario Langevin.
Merci.
Thank you.
Bonjour, mon nom est Frank Pellerin. I just have one question. What is the cost per household right now for policing per year?
The average?
91.35?
I'll let Elisa handle that.
West Nipissing. I have it.
So based on the same number of households that we showed earlier, the 2018 West Nipissing Police Service is $550 per household.
Okay. And with the graph that we were shown with the numbers, what would be the cost per household if the first year if we change to the OPP?
So the first year, again, remembering that it has all those startup costs, the first year of OPP is going to be $645. It then declines from there to 2021 when we do the rollover to be just over $500 per household under the OPP versus $591 for West Nipissing Police at that point in time.
Any more questions, comments? Sir, just for the viewing public that are watching on YouTube and Eastlink, if you will. Thank you.
I'd like to repeat my question. There seems to be a contradiction between what you answered my friend and what you answered me. I've asked for a clear answer. Yes or no, the bylaws that we have right now will be enforced, or yes, you will look at enforcing the bylaws.
Bylaws are enforced, it's legislated, but what bylaws, the specific bylaws, are what are discussed between the Police Services Board and the detachment commander.
So we might lose some service in terms of the bylaws.
Depends on what your Police Services Board discusses.
So we will not have more bylaws enforced, we'll probably have less bylaws enforced, most probably.
There'll be no change in service level if that's the
So we
direction of
want
the
to keep
Police
all the
Services
same
Board.
bylaws. Is there any guarantee that the bylaws that are currently enforced will be enforced with no changes?
I might be able to answer that one as well, because currently, our police service acts as one of our bylaws enforcement agencies. We have also been in the process of developing, and when Steve was doing it, he was actually doing it for the municipality, not for the police service.
Okay.
So he actually wore both uniforms for a while. So we are looking at developing our own bylaw internally, but the police do back us up on the ones that, and right now they are just ones that are specified. So it would be the same situation going forward. We would have these ones that we'd ask the OPP to backfill on us. We'd have ones that the municipality maintains, and so it would be the same service with bylaw enforcement.
Thank you very much.
My name is Isabel Mosler. I'm actually asking a question for somebody who couldn't come tonight. And it's about the search and rescue team that's emergent in West Nipissing. The commitment has already been made by our local police department to work with that organization to help them develop. And I want to know if something similar would be coming from you guys.
We do, the OPP currently works with volunteer search and rescue groups across the province. So certainly that would be a discussion that we would have with our emergency services personnel. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Marlowe, and I'm a resident of West Nipissing and also a police officer with the West Nipissing Police Service. Been a police officer now for 18 years. One question that I had that I wasn't clear on was manning. How many officers on duty will you have at all times? I understand there's minimum manning and on, because I know what we have already as a minimum manning of 3. Over the weekend, night hours, Friday night, Saturday night, we're minimum 4. And we are on crews of 5. So there are times where we work with 3, and there are times where we work with 5, plus the chief and the inspector, of course. So I was wondering, is there going to be a minimum manning officers within West Nipissing, understanding that we're going to have 2 backup in the area that we will be integrated with. So that's my question to you.
So our proposed amalgamated structure, and for everyone who was privy to the presentation we had last week to Mayor and Council, proposes that we will have 4 members assigned to the West Nipissing zone every shift, in addition to 1 supervisor. So you'll have 5 members assigned to your zone for every shift.
Okay.
In addition to the other members that are going to be in the other zones, the 3 other zones.
So minimum manning would be what? There's people sick, there's people on holidays. So what would be the minimum manning? If one person on holidays, another one is sick, then you have 2 officers with a supervisor? Would that be?
So that's the beauty of our integrated service delivery model. When we have things that crop up like calls, court, training, that sort of thing, we can bring officers in from other zones, we can bring members in from other detachments. We also have resources at regional headquarters should there be a major event that takes place.
Okay, so the minimum manning would be what?
We'll have 4 members assigned to the 4
Yes, I
constables
understand
and
that.
1 sergeant.
Yes, I understand that. One's off sick, one's off on holidays.
That's right. So it will be up to the platoon supervisor to make sure that we have the resources in the right places, and depending on calls for
So
service.
what would be the minimum manning?
We don't work
We have a
based-
minimum manning here of 3.
Yeah.
Okay, minimum 3 officers here in West Nipissing.
We don't work with minimums per se, as you call it. We depend on our integrated service delivery model to provide the best service that we can, using the officers that we have in all of our zones, and also knowing that we have officers in neighboring detachments that can also be available to assist.
And the other way as well, right? We can leave our area to go assist as well in urgent situations outside.
I'll give you an example. If there was a major collision on Highway 17, initially you might have a couple of officers leave the zone to assist with that call for service. And it would be up to the shift supervisor to ensure that he or she returns the resources to the proper zones to make sure that there's adequate coverage. We also rely heavily in the OPP on analytics and determining where our calls for service are, where they're going to be, and making sure that we're appropriately staffed for those times.
Because this is what West Nipissing brings to the area is the service and the personnel that is within West Nipissing that can respond to those dog calls, noise complaints, assaults, whatever it is. an old lady that lost her way at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, and we're there. Break and enter, we're there right away. It's just, I'm worried about the response time that might change if in certain situations where the staffing might be a little low. And that's what we bring here in West Nipissing. We bring staffing, we bring quick response time. And also, I just wanted to throw out is that we, police officers, are most of us born and raised here in Sturgeon Falls. So when we have to deal with people, often we know the people that we deal with. We know who their mothers are. We know who their fathers are, or their sons are, or their daughters are. And that is what is good, you know, as a person that was raised here. So it just brings a lot more personalized service. So that was just my little point. So thank you very much for hearing me out.
I can also tell you, just in response to your question, that on a platoon, there'll be 13 frontline constables spread throughout the 4 zones, as well as 2 supervisors on every shift.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we get to the next question, if there is one, I'll pass the mic on to Barry, the chair of the West Nipissing Police Services Board.
And just in response to the conversations around the board dealing with bylaws on a go-forward basis if they do go to OPP. Currently, we have a 5-person board, 4 right now, but it should be 5. 2 of them are provincially appointed, 2 are members of council, and 1 is appointed at large by council. One of the things in the Police Services Act, the new one coming out, and we've heard from the OPP, is that they're going to, in order to create efficiencies, and our chair of the Police Services Board for Zone 1, Doug Jelly, who is a chair of the OPP board, has written many letters concerning the fact that they want to go to regional boards instead of local boards. In effect, what they're going to create is similar to what we have now for DSAP, where you will have 1 representative from Sturgeon Falls, from the West Nipissing area, 1 from Marks-de Warren, 1 from whatever municipalities they have in the Sudbury area. So the ability to offer advice, the ability to let them know what the concerns of West Nipissing will drop from a 5-person board dedicated specifically to the police association to 1 person who's a member of 10. And I know from previous experience with DSAB, it becomes a popularity contest again, and sometimes the wishes of the neighbors. So I'd just like to ask the OPP, because I've never had the opportunity to ask that question, what are their comments on what the proposed legislation and direction that they're going in?
My understanding with the proposed legislation that you're talking about, the revisions to the Police Services Act, right now there's no details on what the construct of a Police Services Board would be. So as far as the makeup of that board, my understanding is things would be as prescribed by regulation, and until such time as the regulations are written and supplied to us, I can't comment on that.
So, Monsieur Etier, and then I know there's a gentleman at the back, even though he's got a Maple Leaf shirt, we'll let him ask a question.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut in, but okay, I just want a clarification. The same complement of officers, their duties would include provincial highways? Or I guess it's an advantage of the integrated service, and I can appreciate that. But the hours dedicated for the community here would be less.
No, I wouldn't say that. The officers are expected to do provincial and municipal duties.
Yes.
However, there may be officers coming into your area doing municipal services from other zones as well. So it's all based on it's going to be based on your calls for service.
So at the end of the year, the billing hours are accounted for, and it could be more. for municipal portion?
No, so in the FTE transition contract, essentially what you are guaranteed.
No, I'm not talking about the transition, after. That's the one that's worrying me. There's no set price there. You know, at the end of the year, it's calculated, and then it is billed on actuals. So if you tell me there might be more people doing municipal work in the municipality, well, then the cost will be higher.
It's not at the local level, and that's the beauty of the model. The OPP billing model is a provincial model, so those costs are shared across the province on that base service side. On the calls for service side, there's certain particular calls that are billable. Not all calls fall under that category. And then it's just the reactive type of calls for service fall under that second category, not the base.
Okay. It's more complicated than I can absorb right now, but
I agree.
That's
the
why
billing model,
we need more time to absorb all of this.
Yeah. The billing model, there's plenty of information that is available on the billing model. It is under our Municipal Policing Bureau site. Plenty of information there. There's also a cost estimator tool that's been created and provided under that site to assist with anyone who's interested in answering some of those questions for themselves. But I can assure you, since the model was instituted, we are looking at something that's very stable. The reason the model was implemented is because there was a wide variation in costs when the costs were applied at a local level. And in response to the Auditor General, as well as communities that had raised concerns about how those costs were applied, a new billing model was developed. That billing model has brought those costs. We had some communities that were paying less than $6 per property, and other communities paying over $800 per property. And what that has done is now brought all of our municipalities across the province down to about an approximate average of $355 per property. And for the 4 billing years that the model's been introduced, looking at the average cost per property, 4 years ago, the 2015 reconciled cost was $354 on average per property cost. That's now $355. And we're looking at, we're talking about $400 million approximately in OPP municipal cost recoveries. And the number speaks for itself on the stability of the model to look at that change of $1 as an average across all 324.
If I can just add to that about so the billable calls are reactive calls for service. They're not proactive calls for service. So if our officers are doing ride checks, traffic enforcement, property checks, business checks, the municipality is not billed for that because that's not reactive. So.
And in addition, any provincial calls for service are not captured in the OPP billing model. They fall under the other. We have approximately a $1.1 billion budget. $600 million of that goes towards provincial and specialized services. Provincial response is not captured or charged back to the municipalities.
The gentleman at the back's been patiently waiting.
Mon nom est Roger Larivière, and je ne parle pas français. You can blame my parents for that one. It's a general question just on trends in the province. We have over 300 municipalities in the province. The OPP has contracts with about 130 of them. Is that increasing, decreasing? Like, is there a provincial trend going on in the province? Like, you have 130 contracts now. What did you have 10 years ago is basically what I'm saying there.
Yeah, let me just...
They'll get the exact numbers, but there's 444 municipalities in Ontario. We police 324 of them on cost recovery basis. You're right, there's 130 contracts serving 143-ish municipalities, but there's also 100, I believe it's 79 municipalities who we police under Section 5.1 non-contract agreement. So totaling, on a cost recovery basis, we police 324 of the 444 in Ontario.
And is that holding steady? Like, I guess what I'm getting at are there municipalities our size? Are there more going with OPP contracts or staying with their municipal police? Or have you noticed any trend or provincially?
That really is an individual municipal decision. And
I know.
it's a decision they don't undertake very lightly, because certainly there's a lot of emotion behind that as well. But as far as trends on that, we did have 12 costing requests after the OPP billing model. At this time, we still have a number of them underway. We've had one that has transitioned over, a second one that's voted to transition over at this time. And with the introduction of the OPP billing model, there was one municipality at that time that chose to receive their policing services somewhere else.
Okay, thank you.
Tu peux pas aller là avec les bras croisés. Merci.
As I sat down, I was sent a text from an officer that's on duty that wasn't able to come here. He said, you missed me. I just, I don't know. I'll say no. But that's just a guess of mine. The question to me was, for the OPP, was the senior officer percentage included in your salaries? Because we have a 369 senior officer pay raise, I guess. I was wondering if that was included.
The salary rates that are in the proposal are based on weighted average rates for municipal detachment staff by rank, level, and classification. So, yeah. It was average, but the classification was included.
And what are those experienced officer percentage? Do you recall?
Depends. It depends on how many years of service.
Yes. What is that? That's what I'm asking.
I don't have that chart with me, but it varies between 8-year spans and increases over time as far as our provincial
So that is
responsibilities
calculated in those numbers?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's the question.
But it's done on an average for this. And then the salaries, anything with the salary and a benefit component is reconciled back to actual at the, on the annual billing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Merci, Denis.
Hello, Steph.
Hi.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Ravita. I'm from West Nipissing. And first comment that I'd like to make is that I've been taking a tally of those that have been asking questions, and there's been no questions beside Mr. Bain's question from people from out of the community of Sturgeon Falls. I think it's should be that we should have some of these tete-a-tetes with the individuals in the other communities. Either they're not interested or this is just baffling everybody, and this is the only people that showed up, people that are in Sturgeon Falls. That's a statement. The second, I have a question for
Elisa?
Elisa, have you done some number crunching to tell me as a household how much it's going to cost me more if we stay with the Sturgeon, the West Nipissing Police, or if we go to the OPP?
No, what I've done with the number crunching is given that average kind of household number on a quick look here. When we're looking at the point when we're into the billing model and we're talking about those $700,000 plus a year, we're looking at 1% of tax is about $140,000 in West Nipissing right now. So we're looking at somewhere in that sort of 5.5%, 6% difference in tax. So on an average household, what are we now? We're at 160. So yeah, it's sort of that couple hundred per household potential on an average house. Yeah.
May I make a suggestion? If we're going to continue this debate, which I hope that we're going to have more time to discuss this than having it forced down our throat on December the 5th, that you do some number crunching and show us the difference. Because I heard a statistic, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said 500 per household, then you said if it was going to be 580 per household. Tell me as a taxpayer how much it's going to cost me per household?
So the numbers I gave you before, and I'll give those again, is that average number per household based on there being 8,260 households. And that's similar to the numbers that you'll see on our FIRs and on our regular reporting and things like that. So we often use those numbers as the cost of policing. We'll do the same thing when we look at what the cost of roads are. So in 2018, recognizing that the OPP is going to be more expensive because of startup costs, they're looking at about $645 per household compared to $553 with the West Nipissing Police. When we roll forward to the point that the billing model kicks in, then at that point, West Nipissing Police sits at $591 per household and OPP sits at $503. And then they continue to kind of grow forward. The span raises a little bit, so when we're 10 years out, it's closer to $100 difference between the two, as opposed to $93 difference or $88 difference. So it grows a little bit as it rolls through, but you're going to stay about that $100 difference on that average per household. And yeah,
Per year?
Per year, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Okay, you answered my question, thanks. The second question, can I ask another question, Steph? How many questions can I ask? Okay, thank you. Question would be, and I have to declare some bias. I was raised over the Joint Fire Police Department in Sturgeon Falls. So my grandfather was a chief of police, blah, blah, blah. That's all the sentimental part. So, you know, walking in here, one of my friends said to me, she said, well, I know where you're going. You're biased. Well, okay, perhaps I am biased. So I'll declare that. The point would be is the command person. It's 0.3 devoted to our zone. Will he or she have a physical presence in the community?
Yes, our proposal has that the inspectors will have an office at the West Nipissing Detachment. However, we do expect our detachment commanders to be present in all municipalities and have a presence in all municipalities.
Okay.
But their office will be at the West Nipissing Detachment.
So he will be or she will be accessible to us if we need something, we can walk over and we can discuss it with them.
Most certainly.
Good. Another comment I'd like to make, Stefan, is, you know, we've been talking about dispatch, and the dispatch is going to be from your center, which I have no problem with. What's going to happen in West Nipissing with the people that are doing our dispatch now, Chuck? Because I don't see them in the transfer process.
No, we currently have 4.75 FTE dispatchers. That translates to 3 full-time staff and 4, sometimes 5 part-time staff to fill that. We have 1 administrative assistant. From the model that's been presented, there would be 2 administrative assistants, or 2 admin, clerical, just to use the same terminology. There are no guarantees that I can see. Would 2 have an opportunity to get employment? I would hope so, but the remainder would be looking for employment elsewhere, from what I understand.
Thank you. One of the points that was made in your presentation to council, you said that you're bounded by the French Language Services Act, which is a provincial legislation. In my past, I did work for the provincial government for 7.5 years in a managerial role. And basically all that means is that you must provide the service, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have a bilingual service here. It means that if I'm pulled over and je demande de me faire adresser en français, vous allez téléphoner à un constable, puis le constable va me parler au radio pour m'offrir les services. You know, I've been a civil servant for all my life. The French Language Services Act has no teeth to it whatsoever. I was a senior manager in the provincial government, and I know that for a fact. So how will you ensure that the bilingual services are always there? And I think you're going to tell me, yes, they're only going to be a phone call away. That is not what kind of service we're getting right now. So what are you going to tell me?
We have a number of communities that we police throughout Ontario that are designated as French language services, and as a result of that, we have a certain number of positions that are designated as bilingual, and in order for those positions to be designated as bilingual, the officers have to meet a minimum standard that's required. It is a fairly high threshold. So I can say with confidence that we will be able to provide adequate service, or service that you will be pleased with, I believe, in the French language.
However, there is a way around that. All you have to do is have the position acting, and the person doesn't have to meet the requirements of the French Language Services Act, and that is a fact. Sorry, it is a fact.
That's not how we operate in the organization. We ensure that people who are in our officially designated positions are in fact bilingual.
In an acting base?
Fully bilingual.
In an acting base.
That doesn't apply. If it's a designated bilingual position, a French language
my
person
point
will
is,
be in that position.
No, the point is in all due respect, is that there was a way around it, because I played the game too. If the person's in an acting position, even though they're in a designated position, they don't have to be bilingual.
Yeah, merci beaucoup. J'apprécie la question. Thank you, everyone. Primarily, being bilingual, I've worked in northern communities where there's a majority population of francophones. With respect to the OPP, in terms of francophone or French service delivery, it is a fact, no, we do not have those types of circumstances. In fact, if the position is designated bilingual, the member who is in that position shall pass a French language test to meet a certain threshold in their ability to speak French, and they fill that spot. That spot will not be filled by an Anglophone or a unilingual sort of member if it's a designated bilingual position.
How many positions?
I can also add that, again, I've worked in the north, so for example, Hearst, Kapuskasing, predominantly Francophone. If there's 15 positions, likelihood there in that case, 14, maybe even 13, 14 were bilingual officers. Hawkesbury, Ontario, the whole office is Francophone as well.
So just that's a good point. How many members will you designate for this area?
That'll be, sorry.
That's yet to be determined.
Okay. And we will have input on that as a community? The council will have input on that, I hope?
Bear in mind, there's still the opportunity here where should it go to OPP, you still have the opportunity of officers that are here already, potentially coming over as well, right?
Yeah.
And so those members in the community, in the interest of serving your community, in the interest of providing that service in French, will still be there. And so that complement, in terms of the need or requirement, necessity to serve you as the best possible way in your community, will definitely be determined in consultation with your council. Absolutely. It is a cooperative, collaborative approach in ensuring we provide you with the best possible service to your satisfaction.
Good, thank you. Just as a parting comment, the consensus that we got from the floor here tonight was that that this was a rush, and that most of the people that addressed it said that the decision should be made on December 5th. I'm asking council, pleading council, those that are here, that they look at that and look at the consensus on the floor here and give the community more time to, feel comfortable with the information we're getting. And then they can make the decision. In regards to a plebiscite, I'm sorry, I think it may divide our community. I think our community is divided enough as it is. There's been police bashing both sides, stories about the OPP, how one guy treated another person, stories about our force. That shouldn't go. And this should not become a political game. So I'm parting with a plea to the municipal council. Give us some more time. Get out there, talk to your constituents, because there's nobody here from, I never heard any questions from Living. I never heard any questions from Verner. Never heard any questions from anywhere else. River Valley. We never heard any questions from Kipling. And I thought Paul would ask a question. But, we should. Hey?
I think he's patiently waiting.
You're coming, Paul. Come on. Paul's going to make a comment. So thank you very much for your time. I know it's not fun. I've been there, did this, done that, but, hey, we just want the best for our community because we have a damn good community and we should be proud of it. Thank you. Thank you.
So I see Mr. Finley making his way to the podium here. Paul, I just want to remind you the lights will shut at 9 o'clock.
And I'll be on my way back to the bush before you know it. My name is Paul Finley, and I'm from Kipling. So there is somebody, apart from Rolly Larrabee, that's from the outskirts here tonight. This is supposed to be a business decision, and obviously it's turned into anything but. We've heard a lot of emotion tonight. I think Bob Pilon said it as well as anyone. when you're down on the ground and you need help and an officer with a patch shows up on their shoulder. You don't care what the patch says as long as it's a police officer. And I think we've all had good experiences, mostly, with the officers from both police services that are being discussed here this evening. And I, like everyone else, have had personal experience with both the local police and the OPP, and I don't think there's any question to the professionalism that our police services in Ontario and Canada carry. We're a model for the rest of the world. Having said that, there has been, this is the third time the OPP have been at the table. I commend you for your patience with West Nipissing, but I realize this is a professional endeavor, and it's supposed to be a business endeavor. 3 years ago, there was a game-changing event that occurred. This municipality again chose to go with the local police force. However, there were some decisions made at the time, and I was still around as a councillor then, or just kind of we were on our way out, I guess, some of us, that we would go with the local force. It was a better deal, and this is supposed to be, again, a business decision. Lo and behold, as part of the costing, the OPP had indicated that the current building would have to be renovated to meet their standards. That was taken into account, probably went against the OPP at that time. Lo and behold, the local force got in and renovated the building and cost a fairly good dollar, and with all respect. And it was needed. And I don't think anybody was hiding anything. It was an old dilapidated structure in some respects. The cells were in terrible shape. So the work was done. Now we find 3 years later that whether those renovations that were made then would have been up to snuff for the OPP at that time, I don't know, but I would imagine they would have been a lot closer. But now the whole building isn't acceptable, and I understand it's largely a result. It's a large picture as a result of Megantic, that OPP do not want to locate within a certain radius of rail lines, which would mean that Town Hall shouldn't even be there now, but half of Sturgeon Falls shouldn't be there. If we were all to take that same, but our emergency services require that freedom. So, but the big point here is the rules of the game changed. The policing structure has changed. The policing model, the finance model, has changed substantially from the OPP. What says, just like your hydro bills, that in 3 or 5 or 8 or 10 years' time, when a new government of the day that is not as politically sensitive as the current government we have that's lowered our hydro bills falsely, that has probably given a nod to the OPP or a direction to the OPP to alter its policing models and costing models, won't change again, and that the costing structures attached to policing will not be altered substantially and out of the control of the people of the municipalities that they serve. And I guess that's part of the problem with going with the large global players, and in this case the OPP, is that as the DSABs are, as probably 70% of what the taxpayers of this municipality pay out in their tax dollars, those decisions are not made by a council. They are made by provincial regulations. And if provincial policing regulations and costing attached to change, with all respect to the people sitting at this table, you won't have a heck of a lot to say about it, because you'll be given marching orders by Ontario's budget chiefs that this is how much money you're going to have, and you're going to have to deliver those services and find your money elsewhere. And we know where. It's called downloading. And there's uploading and there's downloading. The current government is doing quite a bit of uploading because they need votes in the next election. Following that, you could have a totally different government that is very fiscally conservative, that will say, as happened in the province a few years ago, user pay across the board, there will be huge downloading, and it could change that pricing model. What guarantee do the taxpayers in this municipality have that that will not change again? and that they will have absolutely, by then, no control over those costs or any say in what those costs are.
My colleagues may want to add to it, but just a quick little thing on my part. The last time the billing model was revised before 2015 was 1998. So it was 17 years, and it's a huge undertaking to revamp the whole billing model. And one of the main driving force behind revising this billing model was because of the huge variations in costs from one municipality to the next that needed to be addressed to bring more equitable billing to all municipalities. So again, I can't say for sure this isn't going to change, but if the current billing is providing that equality or equitable billing across the province, I don't see why the government would go again in the next few years through a huge undertaking to change it if people, I guess if it's fair across the province, people wouldn't be complaining. If people aren't complaining, they wouldn't be looking to take this huge undertaking again.
We hope. Just a couple of other quick points, and I will make them brief. One is that several years ago when this was discussed originally, and the councils of the day were actually asked to consider a hybrid model of policing. What you are hearing and what you've seen around the council table, and I'm still an observer, is there seems to be a preference in the outlying areas for the OPP. I still think that goes back to many, many years ago when the OPP was the only police forces in the former unorganized areas and so on and so on. So there's always historically been a stronger relationship, and the fact that provincial highways run through some of those areas still, they still see the OPP, and so the heart ticks a little heavy when that happens. Not saying that West Nipissing hasn't done a wonderful job in representing itself in those outlying areas. I think the current model works quite well that way, to tell you the truth. However, we have seen, as observing council, that there is a stronger desire expressed through those members of council in the rural areas for the OPP, as opposed to those members of council in Sturgeon Falls who favor the local force. And I think that's an honest observation. So having said that, has anybody considered revisiting the hybrid model? The OPP are out there supposedly cruising our highways, going through the river valleys and the ravines and other places like that. Could they do that? And could it be done on a cost-effective basis? Could their services be hired on a fee-for-service basis? Not saying that the local force would not have a presence there, some form of jurisdiction, and there is cooperation already, as the chief has so well indicated this evening. But would there be better economies of scale? We're talking business. We're not talking personalities. We're not talking relationships, although they are important. We all agree. We're talking from a business basis. Has anybody considered revisiting the hybrid model? So that's a second point that I would ask. Is there anybody that has a comment about that?
Can you describe what you mean when you say hybrid model?
Where you have the OPP policing the outlying areas, especially those that where provincial highways run through and actual OPP cruisers come by presently, like River Valley. I'll just use that. It could be Levine, because you guys go through Levine a lot of the time on your way to your detachment office in Noelville. So, it would be a dual policing. We call it hybrid, whatever you would call it. But you would have the OPP in the outlying rural areas of the municipality. And the local force would be not just Sturgeon Falls, but it would focus on the core and might be able to do that more efficiently.
So that's up to the choices that municipality has on what type of policing that they choose to have is under Section 5 of the Police Services Act. And there's a number of those choices that are outlined there. There is opportunities for the municipality of West Nipissing to have different models, but one of the other choices is to go with the OPP, and the OPP does not do the hybrid with a municipal police service.
Okay. I'll only have one more question then.
And you said brief, right?
Foot patrols, and I'll leave it at that. Do you guys do foot patrols? Of course not. No, but no-
Absolutely.
Yeah, do you?
Absolutely, we do. Foot patrols are a regular part of our patrols, just as vehicle patrols are, and we certainly expect our officers to be out meeting people, speaking with people, interacting with the public, and getting to know our community members. That is an expectation that all detachment commanders have of their people.
Well, that's nice. The mayor didn't pay me to say that, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I don't see anyone at the podium. I see a couple people. So we'll allow 2 more questions because there's 2 individuals that are up. So ma'am, if you can go first, and then we'll allow Vianney to go second, and then we'll call it a night.
Suzanne Fortin from Sturgeon Falls, 30-plus years taxpayer. It was discussed about the Police Services Act, that it's being either amended, revisited, revised, whatever. I think that could impact the cost savings if we so happen to go with the OPP. Because I, for one, don't think anything ever comes down. Everything always goes up. So, and another point is that I'm sort of a shoot from the hip person. $8 million for a building, $2.5 million for severance and pension adjustments. With $10.5 million, we could sure fix our roads. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Vianney Morin, and I'm a firefighter in town. And more a comment I want to do. I work with both policemen. I work on the highway with accident with the OPP. There's nothing wrong with that. I work a lot with the police in town, and I don't want to lose that service because they are a friend of mine. And they're there night, day, they do what they have to do. I'm not a number guy. I don't know nothing about what you said. I don't understand nothing about that. One thing in my mind, if you hire 22 people, we got 22 police officers in town. You hire 22 police officers, we paying the shot. Those police officers are going to be pay more money than we got right now. So you can't beat the cost of the town. And like Madame just said, how are we going to replace $15 million? And I'm going to talk about a firefighter and I'm going to talk to the councilor because I think they all know me in town. We do lots of volunteer work in town. We got problems sometimes to buy stuff to help people, to buy special equipment. We do volunteer work. The last 10 years, we gave $300,000 to the town to help people. And now you're going to throw $15 million in the water. I'm not for that. Thank you.
I will provide anyone from the panel an opportunity to clarify anything, to make a final statement if you wish, both from the OPP and West Nipissing Police Services side, and then we will officially call it an evening. Did you wish to take?
No comment.
No comment?
No, I have a comment. I just want to say it's really nice, and I can really appreciate the passion your community has for your community, the vested interest you have demonstrated here tonight with respect to this whole proposal process. I want to reiterate what was discussed and mentioned at the last meeting, if I may, is that whatever happens at the end of the day, the OPP will continue to maintain a very strong, a very collaborative relationship with the West Nipissing Police Service. That will not change or ever change. We will continue to provide the service we provide as we're responsible to do so. So please keep that in mind. And again, thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. It's been a true pleasure seeing a community come together when it comes to sensitive issues such as this. The questions were great, and hopefully we had the opportunity to respond to your questions. And we're here, again, over the course of the next 6 months to continue to work with you and help you make an informed decision on a very critical aspect of your community. Thank you very much for having us.
Chief Seguin?
Quand on est deuxième, le premier a certainement volé quelques mots qu'on a à dire. I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments. This is a difficult decision. This is the third time at bat for this community. I was down the road 40 kilometers from you in 1999. I heard what was going on. It is divisive in the community. The only thing I can tell you is you know what you're paying for today and you know what you're getting. I can't predict the future in terms of what these projections are. This is a formula that was put out in 2015, which has a multi-year implementation period. I have perhaps, and some of the guys from the office would know this, I guard taxpayers' money better than my own. It's difficult for me to try to look forward and say, has this formula proven itself over time to do what the projections say they're going to do? So that is my concern as a community member, as a taxpayer. I'm a little, I don't play the stock market. We're at a point in time right now where in policing in this province, there are a lot of unknowns. The Police Services Act is changing. We have the legislation tabled just a few weeks ago. We're still trying to read through all the changes in the analysis. We don't know what it's going to look like in the future. I'm just more cautious with money. I'd like to see some time go by with a formula that's relatively new that actually proves itself out. I would be the first to applaud whoever created a formula that could save somebody 15% in year 4. If I truly understood it, if you were getting exactly what you're getting today and you could save 15%, I would be the first one to applaud it. But I truly don't see where those savings can come from other than a reduction in services. Tonight at 3 a.m., you walk over to 225 Holditch Street, you walk in the door, someone's going to greet you. That's going to change. Change is painful. Would it be a good change or a bad change? I really don't know. It depends on your perspective. This is a difficult issue for this community. And I hope every contingency is taken into account when the decision is made, and that everybody has a voice and takes advantage of speaking to their councillors to let them know how they feel. And with all respect to my colleagues, that's the only statement I'm going to make. And I echo that. Our officers on the front line, senior managers, we work hand in hand on a daily basis. And we're going to continue to do that regardless of where this takes us. Because we don't police a geography. We police people. We police by consent. You give us that consent. And I really don't care which uniform it is. And someone said it, when you're down on the ground, you don't care what color the patch is. And we're going to continue to work that way, whether it's with our OPP colleagues, Anishinaabeg Police, our neighbors to the east in North Bay. It's going to continue. So again, I thank you for coming out. I thank you for this opportunity to speak. And I'll give it back to you, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. So this officially concludes the public forum session regarding OPP costing. I want to thank the OPP and the West Nipissing Police Services for your participation. And I also want to thank you, the residents, for being involved. I want to remind everyone that you still have an opportunity to send in your questions. If there are any questions that you think of tomorrow or the day after, we do have an email address on our website. It's oppcosting@westnipissing.ca. Send your questions in. We will answer them in writing, and we will post them for everyone to see on our website. You also have the option, and it was referenced a couple of times this evening, to contact your member of council to ask the questions or further to discuss the matter with them. For all the details, and I've mentioned this already, please visit our website. For those of you who don't have access to the internet, we are providing paper copies of everything we're doing in all our public libraries in both municipal offices. And you can always call Town Hall and request, and we'll make arrangements to get it to you. So thank you.